As you all know, my name's Sarah, and I work for the Royal Shakespeare Company. And my job is the Director of Digital Development, and it's the first role at the company called that. And its job was always to bring together arts and technology, so extend the theatre making toolkit. And up till March this year, we were working on a huge project based on the Tempest, building on the Tempest. And for those who don't know what the Tempest was, back in 2016, it was the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death, and we wanted to look at Shakespeare's last play, which is the Tempest, and arguably his most magical and innovative play. And in that production, what we managed to do was bring in technology that we'd never used in our theatre making practice before. And how we achieved that was through collaboration and reaching out to a company called Intel and working with them on how we could create 21st century puppetry using what we know as real-time motion capture, using technology from games engines, from film and broadcast, and bring them into theatre. And that was a huge success. We looked at the character of Ariel in the play. The character, we don't know whether Ariel is a he or she, and the character also transforms into different states when he or she is angry or being mischievous. So it was perfect to explore a real-time digital avatar that was powered by Mark Courtley, who is the most amazing, wonderful, generous actor there is. And the reason why I say that is because he actually agreed to do the show thinking that he would never be seen on stage. And actually that wasn't the case. He ended up, because the technology moved so quickly, he ended up being seen on stage. So that was delightful. And it was a real reminder about the generosity of spirit and innovation that we have in our world. And that's really important to say. So that was the Tempest back in 2016. And we moved through that. And we had really many different people come see the show. And again, what it was able to do was to be a bit of a convener of people going, oh, the RSC are doing something different. That's super exciting. Let's come and see. And then let's have a conversation. And in the UK, it's been a huge investor in innovation through research and development. And there was a call out a few years ago called Audience of the Future. And Audience of the Future was basically an invitation to put applications together that would explore the future of live performance using immersive technology. And instead of just the Royal Shakespeare Company working on its own, what I really felt strongly about was how we could do that not only ourselves, but with a wide range of people, and really impact on the sector, really sort of show the variety of possibilities that we could use immersive technology in live performance. So not just look at theatre, but look at music. So we invited the Philharmonia Orchestra to collaborate with us. Immersive theatre, Punch Drunk. We invited Punch Drunk and the brilliant work that they do and have done for a very long time around immersive work and what that would mean with new tech. Manchester International Festival. So the festival model is a variety of music, live events and scale at international levels. And then the digital studio Marshmallow Laser Feast. And from there we created what I call as a Star Wars bar of people effectively coming together with all their different appetites and all their different ways that they could look at live performance. And we embarked on a set of R&D challenges between us, where we played to our strengths, we looked what we were interested in, and we invited technology companies to collaborate with us. And those technology companies were Epic Games, who we'd worked with the Unreal Engine and on the Tempest, and were really inputting and supporting creators, and still are. Their mega grants program is continuing, not just to look at game development, but non-game work in game engine, Magic Leap, and we continued our relationship with Intel. And alongside that, we, for the first time, brought together university partners. So often with practitioners, what's happening is we do our thing, and then we move on to the next thing, we move on to the next project, and very rarely do we get the opportunity to reflect, understand, see what we're doing, and understand it from a data perspective, understand it from an audience perspective, but also document what we're doing so we can share that learning more broadly. And this was a huge success. We were doing really, really well. We announced that we were going to do a real-time motion captured performance of A Midsummer Night's Dream in a disused shopping centre in Stratford-upon-Avon in June. And then March hit, and we had to cancel everything.
But you said like you had to cancel, and what was the switch at the moment when you knew that, okay, this is the moment that we need to end up the rehearsal, we are locked down? I remember that in Great Britain it was quite hectic, as the limitation of and freedom of movement, meeting up to 6 people, etc. So what was the first feelings, and how have you reframed the model of work?
So what we effectively had to do, we were in a very heavy production phase, and in that moment I just had to call everyone, and we had to stop, and it was quite profound, and we had to gather together very quickly. We had the lockdown moment, and we had to stop everything on production. And the first thing, and we had 14 partners. It's a huge partnership, and a huge amount of investment and rehearsal and planning and preparation. We were starting to bring the set into the shopping centre. We all had to stop, and there were moments where these are small studios. These are studios and freelancers that are running on very, very tight timelines, and we just had to stop and help each other. So the first thing I did was make sure everyone got paid properly, make sure everyone was okay. That was the first bit. It's when you're working in an institution, the different, what we realize in collaboration is one of the strengths of it is you can help each other because you've created a network. And then what I did was I commissioned a consultation piece across the entire consortium, and then audience research. I was like, where are our audiences right now? How do we find out where they are? And then start a pivot exercise to go, if we can't be together in person, how do we be together remotely? And from that moment in March till now, we have re-architected Dream to be able to connect together remotely. And to ask our audiences first was quite an important beat, because through that research, what we realized and what we found was we didn't have the digital equity that we thought. Audiences do not have access to the technologies that we assume. And when we work with immersive technology, very few people have a VR headset. And also there are very few people, not everybody has access to really good broadband or internet connection. And then what you realize is if everyone's at home, they're sharing the devices, they're sharing the technology. And that was a really important beat together for us to go, we mustn't assume that there is a digital privilege out there. And that was a really important beat. But then what we also asked was, what do you want? And overwhelmingly from that research, what came back was togetherness and liveness. And it was a real affirming moment where we went, there is a profound need for live performance. There is an absolute need for us to be together. So how do we can reconfigure that? And that prompted what you see behind me right now, which is my virtual background. And by not being open to the public, unprecedentedly so, we were able to get into our building, and we have scanned the entire Royal Shakespeare Theatre and campus with a LiDAR scan, which is millimetre accurate in a 3D virtual stage now. And that we did that over a week and over time, and we've rendered it into the Unreal Games engine. And so I'm able to sit here and imagine being in the theatre. And most of the time when I come on Zooms and I have this in my background, people are like, oh, I miss it. Oh, and
Absolutely.
one person went,
completely effective.
Yeah, that's my seat. And so it's really interesting to see that. So
But can you choose one of the armchairs behind you?
That's our next step. But one of the things that I've recognised is we stopped production and we weren't able to continue because we didn't have the infrastructure to work remotely. But with virtual production tools, we're not just looking at the output of what you see, we're looking at the technology pipeline, we're looking at how you make theatre. And in some areas like lighting and sound, we're really ahead of the game. There is massive technological advancement, but there's some parts of the theatre making process that are still very analog and still require pen and paper and such like. And you don't want to stop those human elements whatsoever. But what you want to do is equip artists, makers, practitioners to be able to do their work remotely now with the best tools possible. So what we're committed to do. Yes.
I have just one question. I work as well for the repertory theater, and it's like super interesting to me. Like at the moment of cancellation, did you already set up like the new date for the development, or you gave yourself the time to, let's say, think differently about the Midsummer Night's Dream as you think about the produce?
So we gave ourselves the time. There was a lot of healing. There was a lot of healing to do with not being able to do a show, and we had to grieve that show, and we had to give that moment there, and we also had to gather the information of where our audiences were, but where also the consortium was, because we are making this show. And one thing I'm really proud of is that we've kept the consortium together. We've kept the community together at this really difficult time. And one of the real wonderful moments were the research organisations, University of Portsmouth, IT Media, Nesta, De Montfort University, because they weren't impacted quite immediately from the lockdown. They held us, and they got the research, and they provided us with a lot of data and evidence for us to really help our decision making on our next steps. So we will be making Dream again, and that's a wonderful thing. And I can't sadly show you images because it's all secretly being beavered away and all of that. But I might try and show you a couple of images to give you a sense of what we're looking at shortly, if that's all right, and completely spoiler alert. But what we have done is acknowledge that what's really come up is the inequity that there is in our world right now, and to make a show that is coming out of the darkness, that is hopeful, that is joyful, but also looking at the play, The Dream. Midsummer Night's Dream as a play is all about the world in flux, and I can't imagine a better play right now to talk about the world in flux than that. But we're going to just take you on the spirit world, and not the human world of the play. And the collaboration continues with Marshmallow Laser Feast, Manchester International Festival, Philharmonia Orchestra, and ourselves. And we spent a long time re-architecting, how do we do this in a COVID safe way? What happens if we lock down again? How can we achieve this by working remotely? So we're using virtual production tools to achieve that and prototyping it, but we're also making theatre in as least in a person way as possible, but finding out how we can create that humanness. So we've really come together on that, and so we'll perform the play and distribute it through our own platform, made by artists for audiences, and it will be available on desktop and mobile, and there will be levels of them.
So not only the super advanced like XR tools, but as well you're dedicating it to, let's say, usual mobile tools as we do now, communicating with each other. So it's not dedicated only to the super advanced audiences.
That's right. And I think that's really important to say. Our biggest learning through this whole experience, and I'm going to try and share my screen in a minute, which I get very nervous about, is
no worries.
There was a very big debate for us. And I think in a way, without the pandemic, maybe we wouldn't have discussed this so much. But when you're looking at the most high-tech immersive technologies, they're not all accessible to people. Pre-COVID, when you could put on an installation, you could use those technologies and people wouldn't need to own them, but they could experience them by coming into a building and experiencing them. So the ticket purchase was or the access to the building was the accessibility point. But that's changed fundamentally. That if we're looking at home as a destination for live performance now, which we are, we have to work with the tools and the technologies that people have in their hands. But alongside
so how did you make them accessible? How did you reframe it?
So we've reframed it where we will have an experience that will be passive, that audiences can enjoy like we're experiencing now and have that sense of wonderment. And then we will have an experience that will be more immersed. And I so want to talk to you about some of it, but it's all secret. But some of that technology you will be able to interact with, and you will be able to interact with the performance, and you will be able to have a connection with the performance. So one thing that we've been investigating as well is when we're in this theatre behind me, when an actor performs, an audience has a connection with that actor and performer. That actor knows how that audience feels. And that's really important to the actor's performance. And that's why it changes every night. It has a different audience every night, and it changes in that way. And we wanted to play and look at that as a construct. So what we want to do is create a real-time feedback loop. So we will present the show online, accessible on desktop, mobile, and tablet. But you will be asked to do something where we know how you feel. And that performer in real time will know how you feel. And so when the audience research came back to us about connectedness and liveness, and that's what audiences are craving, that's what we responded to. And if I can screen share, I'd like to just show you a setup.
I'm hiding myself.
A setup of how we will make that look for the performer. So bear with me 1 second. I get very stressed about sharing my screen. So here we go. This is what the stage will look like. This will be at the University of Portsmouth, which is the Creative XR studio, which we're safely setting up. And this will be the performer, what the performer will feel. And in that, there will be signifiers for that performer to know how the real world, the connected world, will be sharing their world with you. And that's super exciting. And that's set up using real-time tech. And that's, if you look at it in technology terms, what you're also seeing is this. So the spatial understanding is that the virtual world will be 3D, and whatever you do on your desktop or your mobile phone or tablet, you'll be able to see. So I will stop sharing for a second. But let's pause on that a moment, because just to talk you through the safety angle of it, which we're all obsessed by at the moment, that cast, the actors, will be completely bubbled with a really, really small crew, and will have nothing apart from the online world connecting with them. And that's quite profound. I won't be allowed in the room. No one's going to be allowed in the room. And we will share that content in real time for you there. And it is...
To be clear, Just to be clear, you no longer imagine this Midsummer Night's Dream as the one that you will meet with the audience in the venue that you are picturing. Okay.
No, that's
complete
gone.
Digital transformation. That's
gone. That play we can't do, and that's what I say. We had to grieve that play, and we had to share that play, and we had to let that play go. And through the pandemic, we have had to absolutely change every single process. We've actually had to come together. We've had to look at new skills. And one of the things that we haven't had to do before is look at distribution, because we took for granted our distribution models, and we took for granted that we could access audiences. And I think that's a profound shift. But what we're trying to change is traditional broadcast models where we'll stream a video and you passively watch that. We have to think about live performance and what that means. And to do that, the performer fundamentally needs to know how the audience feel. And so that's, and it feels them. And so we'll be asking our audiences to participate in the performance and be part of the play in real time, and we will run it like a show.
This is something which is scaring for like great part of the audiences. Like I know even the writers who are saying that the most biggest fear about going to the theater is that they will be just invited on stage and being invited to take part in the performance. So in the digital world, it might feel safer, but still this is something which really encourage to try something new.
Yeah, well, that's why we have the passive experience. So we'll have an experience where you don't need to stand on stage at all.
Sure.
So we'll celebrate the people that do want to experience it, and it won't be an experience which makes you exposed. It will be an experience where you will see something that you're part of.
Yours.
Okay, so I think our profound learning is we will do Midsummer Night's Dream next year. And we will also change the audience times to fit around the world. We're now globally programming. So we'll do performances times that fit the US, Europe, and Asia. We'll also be looking about connection with accessibility. So incorporating really asking ourselves big questions around what are the barriers to these experiences and how do we welcome people. And one of the most important things is the new rituals in theatre, and looking at home as a destination for performance, and how do we be in your homes with you, and how do you feel connected to us. It's not just about technology, it's actually about human connection, and how do we not take for granted the rituals that we have when we enter a physical building, a space, when we know when the lights go out that we're going to experience a piece of theatre. How do we give you that sense of event when at home you have the distraction of your social media, of the emails coming through, of what's for dinner, how you're going to extend this, the doorbell going with an Amazon delivery. How do we that huge amount of interruption, how do we create the ritual that you are part of this experience together?
So can you say how?
Yeah, we will be, we'll welcome you to our stage. We will bring you in. We will think about that front of house moment. We will think about you knowing that our other people are there. We are exploring ways that we can let you connect with audience members. One of the interesting things is when we're in these spaces, we may not always speak to each other, but we're connecting, and we're together. And sometimes people have said to me, this theatre isn't immersive, and I think it is. I think we're sat together. We may not be talking to each other, we may be looking in a certain direction, but we are together and we are immersed. And I've always said that the theatre is one of the best virtual reality headsets you can possibly purchase. And I think it's in those principles that we're taking it to people's homes. And so again, you go back to technology as a piece of paper, and if we sent you something that you could open at the same time, knowing that you were opening that envelope at the same time as everyone else in real time, those are the beats, those are the beats, and those are the pieces of magic that we can do. So when I talk about real-time technology, I'm talking about the most cutting edge, bleeding edge, some technology that we'll use in Dream next year, but I'm also talking about some of the most brilliant technology, which is a piece of paper, a human connection, and converging that together as an experiment next year. We will experiment, we will take risk, we will be bold, we will learn from it, and then we hope to share all those learnings next year with the sector. So we'll have a huge sharing of all our technology pipelines, the technical specs, how we made it, because what we want is all of us to share and learn this, because there's nothing proprietarial now about our exploration.
Can I just bomb in and ask
Sure.
one question that I really wanted to ask? I couldn't really not use this opportunity to ask Sarah something that I think might be important for the people who listen to us. I've been a huge fan of Sarah's work at the RSC, but also of the entire Audience of the Future program, which is really something I encourage everyone to learn a little bit more about. But I wanted just to ask you, Sarah, about one thing. So there is, as you said, technology, groundbreaking solutions, huge teams of people who are doing R&D, and then amazing creators, developers, and artists collaborating together. But as you mentioned, at the very basics of this whole huge endeavor, there's a certain vision of a community. And when we have been preparing for this conference, I remember a moment when we were speaking about this professional creative family. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about the driving power before everything you do as an innovator in this very special industry, about the values and goals that actually keep you going. And if you could share a little bit of that with us, because this is such an inspiration, I guess.
Yeah, there's a brilliant quote by Norbert Weiner, who said, to be successful in this new world, either the engineers must become poets or the poets must become engineers. And I genuinely believe that that's always been the case in theatre. I think there's always been engineers and poets. But what drives me is I do think if you put this technology, we're in a moment now where we've been very technology first. We've a profound shift has happened in our generation of the internet. And, you know, I look back at my grandma, who remembers the first time she heard a telephone ring, and it scared her so much, but she remembers it in these profound shifts. But I do believe we're at a really delicate moment where we've been technology first, but what artists do is make us question, and they make us see something through a different lens in a different way. And if we don't welcome people from different industries and different backgrounds, if we don't think about the welcome that we have in our sectors, we become very quickly polarized and disenfranchised and disconnected. And the digital inequities are about people's silence as well, not having a voice. So what drives me is to do the unexpected in traditional formats, and to create change and different ways of working that give permission for risk, but at the same point give demonstrating pride in what you do. And genuinely, I do think work with artists to enable them to imagine with a whole new tool set. But what fundamentally drives me is change, really, and looking at infrastructures that have existed a long time and question why they're there and what they're about and what they do. And also what drives me is people. The thing that got us through this very difficult time was people, and a collaboration that was a people network where there was so much goodwill. I think when things are very difficult, you do realise and value those things that you take for granted, around people wanting to make something happen or help. And I think we could do with a lot more of that, actually, which is why putting it out to the sector is so important.
this togetherness, gathering, community will be our key topics for the discussions that we will end up like this afternoon. It will be 20 past 12, so in 40 minutes. But for now, I would love like very, very much say thank you to you, not only for this presentation today, but moreover than that, really to encourage everybody to take the risk, as technology is only like one risk further than just taking artistic decision, that it's not the easy one each time. So thank you for empowering us and taking this risk and in searching further for new solutions that may somehow shift our arts activities somewhere else.